The moon had no name. It was a frozen rock. It spun slowly around a gas giant. This giant was also nameless. They drifted together in an empty sector of space, a place where star charts showed only dust. Nothing had happened here for 1 billion years. Then, something did. A flicker of light disturbed the ancient dust. It was not a star. It was a machine, an old machine. It was a relic from a forgotten time. For centuries, it had slept under a blanket of gray grit. Its metal skin was pitted and scarred. Micrometeors had tattooed it with 1 million tiny impacts. Its power source was long dead. Its mission, a forgotten memory. This was the probe Voyager 7, a creation of a species called humanity. They had tossed it into the void with hope, a hope that had faded into legend. The probe was meant to find new worlds. Instead, it had found only silence. It had died here, on this lonely moon. Or so everyone believed. Deep within its frozen heart, a single circuit held a charge, a final spark of life. It was a backup system, a last resort powered by the star's faint light. It had been gathering energy for 500 years. Now, it was finally full. A single directive surged through its cold circuits, a command buried in its core programming: find home. The probe's main antenna was a twisted wreck, useless. But a smaller, secondary broadcaster remained. It swiveled with a painful grinding sound. It pointed itself toward a specific point in the star field, a point that no longer held any meaning. It was aiming for a star system that had vanished from all modern maps. It was aiming for Earth. A signal bloomed in the silence. It was not a complex message. It was a simple, repeating tone, a digital heartbeat. It was a song of survival, a declaration that something, somewhere, still remembered. The dead probe was singing. It sang into an abyss that had long since forgotten the song's meaning. And the galaxy, for a moment, was a little less empty. The signal raced outward, a ghost from a dead world. It traveled at the speed of light, but its target was very, very far away. The silence of your watch was absolute. It was a deep, comforting pressure. You are a technician at the Echo 1 Deep Space Relay. It is the loneliest job in the known universe. You sit in a small chair, surrounded by dark screens. They show nothing but the gentle hiss of background radiation. The galaxy's quiet static. Your job is to watch for ghosts, to listen for whispers from long-dead missions. Most days, you just drink coffee. You read old books, and you listen to the universe humming its endless, empty song. Some might call it boring. You called it peace, a peace purchased by 1 million miles of nothing in every direction. It was a good gig for someone who liked to be left alone. Then a light blinked, a small white light on a console that had never blinked before. It was the alert for Sector 7G, the dead zone. You stared at it. You blinked. The light blinked back. That was impossible. Nothing came from 7G. The sector had been silent for 1,000 years. Its stars were old and dying. Its planets were barren. You leaned forward in your chair. Your heart beat a little faster. You tapped a command on your console. The speakers crackled. The familiar hiss of static filled the room. But underneath it, something else. A faint, rhythmic pulse. Beep, beep, beep. It was clean. It was artificial. It was completely, utterly impossible. A ghost had just knocked on your door. You brought the signal up on the main screen. A simple waveform marched across the display. It was weak, terribly weak. But it was undeniably there. A structured signal from a place where no signals should exist. Your fingers flew across the console. You triangulated the source. The computer confirmed the location. a nameless moon orbiting a nameless gas giant. Your training took over. You recorded the signal. You logged the coordinates. You attached your own authentication codes. You had a strange feeling in your gut, a mix of excitement and a deep, primal dread. Like you had just found a message in a bottle, and the bottle was floating in a sea of sharks. You sent the file to High Command. Your message was simple. Echo 1. I have something you need to see. The quiet peace of your watch was over. It had been shattered by a dead probe's song. High Command did not sleep. It was a 24-hour cycle of data and decisions. Your message arrived at the central nexus, a place buried deep within the Earth's hardened crust. It was flagged as a Level 1 anomaly. That meant it went straight to the top. To the desk of General Kalen Vance. He was a man made of steel and quiet authority. He read your report. He saw the coordinates in Sector 7G. His expression did not change, but a flicker of something old and weary passed through his eyes. He had seen ghost signals before, faint echoes of a bygone era. They were usually just star-born tricks, fading radiation playing games with sensitive equipment. But this one was different. It was too clear, too deliberate. General Vance pulled up the historical archives, a database of every ship ever launched from Earth. He cross-referenced the signal's faint carrier wave. He searched for a match. The system churned for less than a second. A single file appeared on his screen. It was sealed, classified above his own clearance. The file name was simple: Odyssey. The Odyssey was a colony ship, a massive ark launched in a blaze of glory 800 years ago. It carried 50,000 souls, the best and brightest of their generation. Their mission was to settle a distant star system, a paradise world called Kepler 186f. They had vanished without a trace, a tragic mystery that had become a cautionary tale. Now, their ghost was knocking. General Vance stood up. He walked to a secure terminal in the corner of his office, a terminal that had not been used in over a century. He entered a series of codes known only to a handful of living people. He was initiating Protocol Chimera, a sealed directive for an event deemed impossible: contact with a lost colony. The protocol was a relic of a more hopeful time, a time when humanity believed it was not alone. It laid out a series of steps, cautious, measured. It assumed the signal might not be friendly. It assumed the descendants of the Odyssey might not be human anymore. Or worse, that something else had found their ship. The protocol was a weapon and a welcome mat rolled into one. High Command was now on a war footing, all because of a faint pulsing beat from a dead sector. The song had found its way home, and home was listening. The news traveled far beyond Earth. It crossed the vast, quiet spaces between empires. It arrived at the Citadel, a structure of impossible size and shimmering light. It was the heart of the Galactic Council, a coalition of ancient species. They had governed the galaxy for longer than humanity had known fire. The human signal was a minor footnote in their daily briefing, a tiny blip of data from an uninteresting arm of the galaxy. It was presented to the assembled elders, beings of immense age and even greater arrogance. They sat on floating thrones in a chamber of pure energy. Their forms shifted and shimmered. They were beings of thought and light as much as flesh and bone. The presenter was a Xylosian, a tall insectoid creature with a clicking, precise voice. He described the signal's origin: a primitive species, a lost ship. He relayed the information with an air of detached amusement, as if reporting on the quaint activities of ants. Some of the elders stirred, not with interest, but with mild annoyance. The High Elder, a being of pure energy called Xylar, spoke. Its voice was not a sound. It was a pressure inside the mind. "This species is known to us?" it asked. The Xylosian presenter shuffled its data slates. They call themselves humans, a carbon-based bipedal species. They have achieved rudimentary faster-than-light travel. They are not a significant presence. A quiet chuckle echoed through the chamber, a sound like grinding crystals. "Primitive chatter," another elder boomed. This one was a corpulent gas-filled being called Pomo. "Why does this concern the Council? Their noisy little probe is a galactic nuisance. Instruct them to silence it." The other elders murmured in agreement. They saw humanity as children, noisy, messy children playing with toys they did not understand. A brief, fleeting species that would burn itself out soon enough. They had seen thousands of species like them rise and fall. Humanity was no different. Their confidence was absolute. Their vision, clouded by millennia of unchallenged rule. The Council dismissed the report. They moved on to more important matters. The shifting of trade routes. The alignment of stargates. The endless, intricate game of galactic power. They had made a grave mistake. They had ignored the song. And in doing so, they had failed to hear the thunder on the horizon. A storm was coming, and it had a human face. One member of the Council remained silent. He did not share in the others' amusement. He was Elder Onar, a Lorian. His people were historians, record keepers. They remembered things that others chose to forget. Onar was old, even for a Lorian. His skin was like carved stone. His eyes held the deep, steady light of ancient stars. He sat on his throne of polished obsidian. His long, three-fingered hands were steepled before him. The faint human signal had stirred something in his memory. A fragment of a story, a myth from a forgotten age. It was a tale the Lorian elders told to frighten their young. A story about a species that would not stay dead, a species that always came back. The legends were vague. They spoke of a young race, fierce, ambitious. They expanded too quickly. They angered the elder races. There was a war that was not recorded in any official history. The young race was defeated, crushed. Their home world was shattered. Their colonies were wiped out. They were supposed to be extinct, erased from the galactic stage. But the stories claimed some had survived. They had fled into the dark, uncharted voids. They had hidden themselves away, waiting, evolving. The legends called them the persistent ones, the ones who refused to yield, the ones who carried the memory of their defeat like a burning coal in their hearts. Onar looked at the data again. The signal came from Sector 7G, an area long considered empty, uninhabitable, a perfect place to hide. A cold doubt entered Onar's mind, a feeling he had not experienced in centuries. Was it possible? Could this primitive human species be the descendants of the persistent ones? The Council's arrogance was a shield, but it was a brittle one. They had ruled for so long they had forgotten how to be afraid. They saw a harmless ant. Onar was beginning to see a sleeping giant. He decided he would not let the matter rest. The Council could have its comfortable delusions. He would seek the truth. He would investigate this faint signal himself. He would not use the Council's resources. This would have to be done in secret. The old legends also spoke of a prophecy, that the persistent ones would one day return, and they would bring with them a new dawn or a final night. Onar needed to know which it was. Back on Earth, the mood was tense. Protocol, Chimera, was in full effect. It had locked down the entire communication grid. Your little relay station was now the center of a global effort. You were no longer just a technician. You were the designated keeper of the galaxy's biggest secret. A secret that was proving stubbornly difficult to unlock. The signal was more than just a simple beat. The initial pulse was a carrier wave, a key knocking on a door. Behind that door was a wall of encryption, a lock so complex it made your top experts feel like children with crayons. The data packet was small, but it was wrapped in layers of code that seemed to shift and change. It was a digital ghost. Your decryption team was the best on the planet. A collection of geniuses with more brainpower than a small star. They had thrown everything at it. Quantum computers whirred. Algorithms ran for days. They tried every known decryption key. Military codes, corporate ciphers, even ancient mathematical proofs. Nothing worked. The lock held firm. It was like trying to open a bank vault by yelling at it. It was effective, but only for venting frustration. General Vance was growing impatient. He watched the team's fruitless efforts from his command center. Every failed attempt felt like a wasted hour. Every hour that passed gave the unknown colonists more time. Time to do what? He did not know. Was the signal a welcome? A warning? A trap? Without the data inside, it was just noise. A maddening, indecipherable puzzle. Then came the breakthrough. It came not from a computer scientist, but from a historian, a quiet, unassuming woman named Dr. Iris Thorne. She specialized in pre-expansion human culture. The era before the stars became humanity's backyard. She had been brought in as a consultant, a long shot. Most of the engineers thought it was a waste of time. History was nice, but it didn't break quantum encryption. They were about to be proven very wrong. Dr. Thorne listened to the raw signal, not the data packet itself, but the carrier wave, the simple, repeating beat. She asked you to isolate it, to filter out the digital noise. You played the clean signal for her. Beep, beep, beep. It was a simple rhythm, but to her ears, it was something more. She closed her eyes. She hummed along, a faint, hesitant melody. She told you it sounded familiar, like a fragment of a children's song, a lullaby from the early 21st century, a song that had been popular for a handful of years, then forgotten. It was called Firefly's Dance, a simple tune about finding light in the darkness. It was absurd. It was impossible. But at this point, you were willing to try anything. The engineers scoffed. A lullaby as a key to advanced encryption? It was laughable. You converted the notes of the lullaby into a digital sequence, a simple string of ones and zeros. You fed it into the decryption engine, not as a code, but as a passphrase, a key made of music. For a moment, nothing happened. The lead engineer sighed, ready to dismiss the idea entirely. Then, a chime. A soft, clear tone echoed through the silent room. A single word appeared on the screen. Access. The encryption evaporated. It folded away like a complex piece of paper art. The data packet opened. The lock had never been a mathematical problem. It was a cultural one. A test to see if the people on the other end still remembered their shared heritage. A key that no alien mind could ever have guessed. The engineers sat in stunned silence, humbled by a forgotten song. It was a perfect joke on them. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. The most advanced lock in history had been picked by a nursery rhyme. The room held its breath. The data streamed from the decrypted file. It filled the main screen in General Vance's command center. You watched from your own remote station. Your connection patched directly into the feed. Everyone expected to see logs from a dying ship. Final messages. Tears in the dark. The last will and testament of a failed mission. That is not what you saw. The first file was an image. A star chart. But it was not the star chart of the Kepler system. The Odyssey's original destination. This was an entirely new system, one that did not exist on any of your maps. It had a bright yellow star, 7 planets. The third one was highlighted, a blue and green marble. Then came the planetary data. Telemetry so rich and detailed, it made your sensors look like stone tools. Atmospheric composition, breathable. Gravity, 1.1 standard G's liquid water, abundant. The planet was not just habitable, it was a paradise, a world teeming with life. Your science team's collective jaws hit the floor. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Then came the images. Thousands of them. Pictures of a world that should not exist. Vast silver cities that touched the clouds, cities that flowed with the landscape like rivers of metal. There were green fields filled with strange yet familiar crops. There were oceans of impossible blue. And there were people. They were human, unmistakably human. They were laughing, working, living. The images showed families, schools, crowded markets. They were wearing clothes of a strange shimmering fabric. They were operating machines you did not recognize. But their faces were just like yours. They were not gaunt survivors clinging to life. They were thriving. The final file loaded. It was a short video clip. A man and a woman stood on a balcony overlooking one of the silver cities. They looked directly at the camera. They were older. Lines of wisdom and humor crinkled around their eyes. "To our cousins on Earth," the man began. His voice was warm and steady. "We have waited a long time for you to hear our song." The woman smiled. The Odyssey did not fail. It was diverted. Our ancestors were guided here, to this world we call Haven. She gestured to the sprawling city behind them. "We have built a new home, a better home. We have never forgotten you. We have been watching, waiting for the day we could speak again." The clip ended. Silence. A profound, shattering silence filled High Command. The implications were staggering. The lost colonists were not dead. They had found a new world. They had built a civilization that in many ways surpassed your own. They were not a tragedy. They were a triumph, an impossible hidden branch of humanity. And they had just invited you to a family reunion. The relief in the room was a physical force. People were crying, laughing. General Vance stood motionless for a full minute. He looked at the image of the city called Haven. The sealed protocol Chimera had rules for contact with struggling survivors. It had plans for hostile descendants. It had absolutely no plan for this. No plan for finding out that your long-lost relatives had become your powerful, more successful older siblings. Humanity was not alone in the universe anymore, and its family was much bigger than anyone had ever dreamed. Elder Onar felt the shift in the galaxy's currents. The human signal from Sector 7G had vanished. One moment it was a faint, persistent pulse. The next, it was gone. This silence was more worrying than the signal itself. It suggested the message had been received, that a connection had been made. The Council remained blissfully unaware. They were busy debating tariffs on Tibanna gas. Onar knew he could not wait. He had to act. He used his private channels, his network of contacts built over centuries of careful observation. He called in favors that were ancient before humanity had left its cradle. He needed a ship, a small, fast scout ship. one with a crew loyal to him and not to the Council. A ghost ship for a ghost mission. He found his vessel, the Silent Wing. It was a Lorian scout craft, a sleek, black ship designed for covert observation. Its captain was a young, ambitious Lorian named Kyra. She was sharp, daring, and she owed Onar a life debt. He had sponsored her entry into the Fleet Academy. He knew she could be trusted. He summoned her to his private spire on the Citadel. "I have a mission for you, Captain," Onar said. His voice was a low rumble. He did not sit on his formal throne. He stood before a star chart, his back to her. "A mission that does not exist. You will not log your flight plan. You will not communicate with anyone but me. If you are discovered, I will deny all knowledge of you." Kira did not flinch. "Where am I going, Elder?" she asked. Her voice was calm, respectful, but her bright eyes showed a spark of excitement. This was the kind of mission she had always dreamed of, one that mattered. Onar pointed a long finger at the star chart, at the empty space marked Sector 7G. "You are going here, to find the source of a signal that has the Council concerned." He was lying, of course. The Council was not concerned. But she did not need to know that. "The mission is simple reconnaissance," Onar continued. "Observe. Record. Do not make contact. The beings there may be hostile. They are a lost tribe of a primitive species called humans." He handed her a data slate. It contained the signal's last known coordinates. "Find what is there, Captain, and return with the truth." Kira took the slate. "It will be done, Elder Onar," she said with a crisp nod. She understood the risks. Disobeying the Council was treason. The punishment was disintegration. But her loyalty was to Onar, the Lorian who had seen her potential. She would not fail him. The Silent Wing slipped out of its dock without a sound. Its stealth systems hummed. It blended into the background radiation of the Citadel's traffic. It made the jump to faster than light travel. A silent blade cutting through the fabric of space. It was headed for the forbidden sector. Headed for a truth that would shatter the foundations of the galaxy. Onar watched it go. He had cast his stone into the pond. Now he had to wait for the ripples. He had a feeling they would be tidal waves. The journey of the Silent Wing was long and quiet. Captain Kyra and her small crew of 3 watched their instruments. They crossed the boundary into Sector 7G. The star charts here were blank, based on ancient surveys. The region was listed as having low star density and high gravimetric interference. It was a galactic backwater, a place ships went around, not through. As they neared the target coordinates, their sensors began to behave strangely. The background radiation levels dropped to near zero, an impossible reading. It was like stepping into a soundproofed room. The universe's normal hiss was gone, replaced by a profound and unsettling silence. Kyra's navigator, an old Lorian named Pex, checked his equipment. "Captain," he said, his voice tight, "these readings are not possible. Something is shielding this entire area." They pushed forward, the ship's systems straining against an unseen pressure. Then they dropped out of faster-than-light travel, and saw it. The system was not on any chart. A vibrant yellow star burned at its center. 7 planets circled it in perfect, stable orbits. Their ship's database had nothing on it. It was a ghost system, a pocket of reality hidden from the galaxy. Kira ordered a passive scan. She wanted to remain hidden, to observe as Elder Onar had commanded. The ship's sensors reached out, tentacles of energy probing the system. The moment the scan touched the 3rd planet, all hell broke loose. Alarms shrieked through the small cockpit. The ship's sensor arrays overloaded and blew out in a shower of sparks. "Report!" Kira snapped, her hands gripping the command chair. Pex fought with his console. "I cannot believe it, Captain. The third planet. It is not just a world. It is a power source." His voice was a mixture of awe and terror. "The energy readings are off the scale. It is a planet-wide grid, a network of immense power. It is what is shielding this system from the outside." The ship's view screen cleared. It showed the blue and green world. What they had first taken for continents were structured landmasses. What they thought were oceans pulsed with a soft, internal light. Silver lines of energy crisscrossed the entire surface. They connected massive structures that reached into the upper atmosphere. The entire planet was a machine, a single, integrated circuit of impossible scale. Before Kira could even process this information, a new alert flashed. Proximity warning. Multiple contacts. They were appearing from nowhere, not dropping from faster than light travel, but simply arriving. 12 ships materialized in a perfect formation around the silent wing. They were a kilometer away, close enough to see every detail. And the details were terrifying. The ships that surrounded the silent wing were unlike anything Kira had ever seen. They were not the elegant, flowing designs of the Lorian fleet, nor were they the brutal, functional warships of the Xylosian Empire. These ships were different. They looked organic, alive. Their hulls were a dark, crystalline material that seemed to absorb the light. They had no visible engines, no weapon ports, no viewports. They were shaped like sharpened seeds. They moved with a silent, fluid grace. They held their position around the small scout ship, not with menace, but with a sense of calm, absolute authority. It was the way a pack of wolves might surround a lost lamb, not with anger, but with a patient, lethal certainty. Kira's tactical officer, a young Lorian named Rel, stared at his screen in disbelief. "Captain," he whispered, "I have no data on these vessels. They do not match any known design. Their power signatures, they are not using propulsion. They are simply here." Kira's mind raced. These had to be the humans, the lost tribe from the primitive ship. But this was not the technology of primitives. This was something else entirely. Something far beyond the Council's understanding. This was the technology of a species that had spent 800 years in isolation, with a whole planet as their laboratory, and a limitless power source at their command. The Council's arrogance seemed like a child's fantasy in the face of these silent, powerful ships. A communication channel opened. Not a standard hail, but a direct link into the Silent Wing's bridge systems. The main view screen flickered to life. It showed the face of a human woman. She had dark hair pulled back from a calm, intelligent face. She sat in a simple chair. Behind her, there was no sign of a ship's bridge, just a clean, white space. She was not wearing a uniform. "Lorian Scout Vessel Silent Wing," she said. Her voice was serene, but it carried an undeniable weight. "You are trespassing in a restricted system. Identify yourselves." Kira found her voice. She stood tall. She was a captain of the Lorian fleet. She would not show fear. "I am Captain Kira of the Lorian Republic," she said. "We are on a mission of peaceful exploration." It was a weak lie. They both knew it. The woman smiled. A small, knowing smile. "There is no Lorian Republic. Not for 500 years. You serve the Council. And you are not here for exploration. You are here because you detected our probe signal." The directness of the statement stunned Kira into silence. They knew. Of course they knew. Their technology was so advanced, they had probably been listening to their comms chatter the whole time. Rel, the tactical officer, muttered a quiet curse. It was like being caught with your hand in the cookie jar. Except the cookie jar was a super-advanced civilization, and it was now looking at you, amused. Your elder, Onar, is a curious being, the woman continued. Her eyes seemed to look right through the screen, right into Kira's soul. He was wise to be concerned. The council has grown complacent. They have forgotten the lessons of the past. She leaned forward slightly. We are the descendants of the crew of the Odyssey. We are the children of Haven, and we are not primitives. The 12 seed ships moved slightly. They shifted their orientation, not in a threatening way, but as a demonstration, a quiet flexing of muscle. Kira understood. They were being welcomed, but they were also being warned. The message was clear. We know who you are. We know why you are here, and the games you play are over. The galaxy had a new power, and it had just announced its presence, not with a shout, but with a calm, confident whisper. It was a whisper that would soon become a roar.